Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. For those listening who are in Perth, Australia, beautiful area with a glistening ocean, clear, lovely, where you can look out upon Gaia itself and pause in the wonder and the spectacular sights and views that are here. Dear ones, there are so many human beings who are asking the same questions. This is a time of changing energy. And as the energy starts to shift, reality itself is being questioned. Humans who have lived a certain way all of their lives are starting to look at themselves and saying, what do I feel that is different? We have spoken so many times about the shift, about the new consciousness which is coming and who it is who will make the difference on this planet. And the who it is are the ones who are listening to the words right now. There is a shift coming that is unexpected. Not frightening, just unexpected. And we've never really talked about it in this way before. So I'll just tell you, it is one thing called dimensional shift. And for you to understand any of this, I have to start at the beginning. I'm going to discuss dimensions. And you would say, well, that's not very spiritual. Really. We'll see. If you were a single dimensional person in one, you'd be on a piece of paper and you'd go in one direction. And that would be your perception, period. Couldn't do anything else. If you add 2 dimensions to it, suddenly you can go another direction on that flat piece of paper. And that's your perception. And if somebody told you about a concept of up or down, you'd laugh at them, because that's not in the purview of your consciousness. It's not anything that people do. If you're in 3 dimensions, suddenly you're on a globe instead of a piece of paper, and you have up and down, back and forth. Now you're far more free. You look backwards into the 1 and the 2, and you say, well, that was silly and stupid to think I could only go in one direction in a piece of paper. Now I know better. Now I'm in 3. If you add the 4th, it's a little more esoteric, a little more brainy. It's about time. So the 4th dimension was one that lets you then start measuring things and know about the time it takes to do things. You have the concept of time. And there you are. And there is where you have been, and that's where, and I'll say it, you've been stuck. Now you'll say, wait a minute. We were born into 4. This is what humans do. This is what is normal for humanity. We're in 4 dimensions. There are those who say, well, what's in the higher dimensions? You see, you cannot go there with your mind. Intellectual, you can't go there. You think you can. But no more than the one on the piece of paper could go into the globe. Can you go into 5, 6, 7, 8? Because you just don't even know what they are. You have no idea. How many dimensions is God in? You might ask. God, Spirit, creative source, whatever name you wish for that where you came from. God is in all dimensions. All right? Follow my logic, because I have something to tell you. Scientists, and it hasn't been lately, have known now for over 2 decades that certain things around you are multidimensional, way beyond 4. And they're head scratchers. They don't understand them. But they started to discover, as they looked at atomic structure, that lo and behold, many, many dimensions were in every single atom. The atoms in the chair that you sit in, the atoms in the body that you reside in. All atomic structure, therefore, was multidimensional. Scientists could identify 11 or 12, but that told them there were probably an infinite number of dimensional possibilities in every single atom on the planet. What are you made of? And the answer is multidimensional atoms. Where is God? God is in every single dimension in all of them. Where are you? Number 4. How can that be? What is it then that would determine dimensional awareness? And what does it mean to be in a higher dimension? It's so interesting. You have to honor the concept of linearity. Humans are linear, multidimensional things are not. The only way that I can show this to you is to give you something very simple. How long is a piece of string? You will say, well, let me get out my measuring stick, and you will measure it, and you will tell me. How long does someone live? You will have the clock, and you will measure that. The concept of linearity is that every single thing, including life, must have a beginning and an end. That is linearity. And if you sit there and say, well, isn't that reality? I will tell you, no, it is not. That is your reality in 4 dimensions. Everything has to have a beginning and an end. So you start asking questions about yourself, your soul. Isn't it interesting that this planet, as an agreement of one God, that all humans will have a soul, whatever that means, and that the soul would continue even after the human dies. So there is the acknowledgement that a soul is apart from the 4 dimensions and seemingly goes and goes and goes, and yet no one is questioning what happened before you got here. How long is your soul? How old is your soul? In a linear fashion, there has to be a beginning and an end. What about that piece of string? Let's say we take that piece of string and we tie it together. Now it's a loop. How long is the string? The answer is you cannot measure it now because it's in a loop. So does that mean it's unmeasurable? No. So how long is the loop? And the answer is infinitely long. It's forever. Now, when you start to apply that to other things, perhaps that are living, including that which your soul, it starts to then twist your mind just a little. And you say, how does that really work? And the answer is, it works well. Your soul is forever. That which is in your body is part of that multidimensional atomic structure that it always was and always will be. And yet that's not how you see it, because that's just a little too strange. Is your soul inside your body or is it outside? And how big is it? All linear questions that cannot be answered in a linear way. Here's another example you may like or not. Let's say you have a wristband of some kind. And let's say that wristband can be removed. A pair of scissors will remove it. Let's say there's an ant crawling on the band. The ant is crawling on the outside, then maybe the ant will crawl on the inside. And so when you say, "Where are you, ant?" it'll say on the outside or on the inside. You realize the ant really can't be on the inside and the outside at the same time, now could it? Take that band and cut it with scissors. Take it and twist it one half and tape it back together. And now when the ant crawls on that, it's called a Mobius strip. And the ant is on the outside and the inside, all at the same time. Dear ones, that is simply a simple Simon way of telling you that multidimensionality is something that you have a very difficulty understanding. Kryon, why are you telling this? I will tell you the next step. What is it that determines the dimension you're in? Did you ever ask that? If you walk around with full dimensionality in your atomic structure, what is it that keeps you in four? Let me take you somewhere beautiful. In this society, one of the major prophets you would have, you call the Master of Love. The Master of Love walked this planet 2,000 years ago. And he was different. This human being was multidimensional. Wherever he walked, he would encounter those, perhaps, who were sick. And when he touched them, they weren't sick anymore. It's been told that the grass grew under his feet as he walked, and animals followed him. There's report after report that he had control over physics, that he could make things out of nothing and change things from one to another. In all of this beauty, a four-dimensional human being had one reaction: fear. To them it was magic, and you know what happened eventually. You might be interested in the healing part, for we have not really discussed this much, but you should hear this. Are other things that are alive on the planet also having specific dimensionality? Yes. Funny you should ask. Would a virus have a dimensional perception? After all, it's alive. And the answer is yes. It's a 3D entity. It doesn't even know about time. In that way, it's stupid. It will infect a host and live on the host, not understanding that in time it will kill itself. Along comes a multidimensional human being, infusing a higher dimensional perception onto a diseased person, and the disease cannot exist in a higher dimension, and the disease dies. There are so many human beings who have for a moment slipped out of their four-dimensional pattern. Either in euphoria or in fear, they have gone past that four-dimension, and for a few moments their whole body rang with a multidimensional which is timeless, and the disease in them shattered because it could not stay in a high-dimensional place. Dear ones, there'll come a time when humanity moves past four dimensions, and there will be no disease because it's a three-dimensional entity. What was it that determined four or beyond? And the answer is consciousness. Consciousness is the motivator, the ruler, the changer of dimensionality in humans. I have told you repeatedly that if you start to become a compassionate human being, if you start to understand the profundity of the love of God, that it starts to move you dimensionally. It moves you, dear ones, past four into that place that you can't count anymore. You get off of that peg and you feel it and you know it. I've changed and I don't know why. And we told you what the results would be. You wouldn't age as much. Isn't it interesting? That dimensional perception will take you off the clock. What scientist was it who told you that your fourth dimension, being time, is variable? It was Einstein. What would happen if you move into a dimensionality where there is no time, or the time is different? Your body then won't age. What human being do you know that was written about that you all have a name? Abraham. This man, he was talking to God. He was talking also to multiple angels. He was getting instructions, and he lived for 900 years. There are those who say, well, that has to be a typo in the Bible. It isn't. He lived 900 years because this man had to be multidimensional to do what he did, to be who he was. At the beginning, dear ones, it was different. So I want you to understand, what is it that changes dimensions within you? And it's your consciousness. The master of love, multidimensional, high consciousness, even controlled physics. That's what that's what compassion does. That's what happens when you have compassion that you can't even measure. That's what happens when you have an individual who's so compassionate they can feel every human being around them all the time. In a very good and positive way, and not a way that would disable them. In a way where they could think about good things and it would be broadcast to others who would receive the good things. That's the master of love. That's a multidimensional human being. I'll tell you something I've never said before. Right now on this planet, there are people who can make things out of nothing with their hands. With high consciousness in very special places. Right now on this planet, there are those who can sit in midair. You call it levitation and you laugh. They can do it. Why is that possible? What are they doing? How could it be? And I will tell you, it is the perception of the consciousness that you're in. It is the change of human nature into a very beautiful, beautiful paradigm that you are barely starting to touch, called infinite love and infinite compassion. It's going to slow down your aging. It's going to make you a person that wakes up compassionate and doesn't worry about time. Understanding that there's something bigger than you ever thought, your soul. You become closer to your soul the higher you get in your perception of dimension. And in that, dear ones, the higher you get and closer to your very soul, the longer you live. The less the disease will attach itself, the more people who will look at you and say, I don't know what you have, but I want it. They will see balance and they will see love. They will see caring. This is the new human. Be aware that dimensionality, you're moving into other dimensions, and I will not call it 5 or 6, because dimensionality becomes unlinear when you pass 4. And you'll stop asking the questions, how long is a string? You'll stop asking the questions, how big is something? How big is God? If you're part of God, how big are you? You want to know how big your soul is? It's as big as God is. Did you know there are others in other universes who know you? And that would stagger your mind to know how big you are. Not how big your body is, dear ones, but how big that consciousness is that's eternal. It's in every one of you. You are magnificent. I have been coming to this planet now for 30 years. And my message, every time I arrive, don't believe anybody who tells you you're less than magnificent. Don't believe anybody who tells you you're dirty. Because that's not how God sees you. That's how humans see you. know these things, I'm going to continue this discussion tonight. And so it is. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive.